Welcome back to the King's Corner, the place for all things Bethesda. I am the KingFanMan, and after a long hiatus, we are back with Fallout 76, Scary Places. That's because Bethesda is opening up a new part of the map, and we are going into Virginia. So this Scary Places is also going into Virginia. Now, if you've never seen the Scary Places before, well, sit back and enjoy. You're going to get some history and then some scary, just like the title says. Today, we are going to Jordan Springs, Virginia. Jordan Springs is the name of an unincorporated community located approximately 4 miles from Winchester, Virginia, which is in the far northwestern part of Virginia on the border of West Virginia, just across from the towns of Jefferson and Berkeley. It is named for the Jordan family, who built 3 hotels on this site, the first being built in 1832. The site they chose to build are on natural sulfur springs. Now, these springs were believed to have almost magic healing qualities and had been famous in this area for a long time. In fact, the history of these springs goes all the way back to 1549, when they were first discovered by the local Catawba Indians. They found 2 beautiful natural white sulfur springs flowing from a cave at the base of a nearby cliff, later named the Devil's Backbone. For almost 200 years, the Catawba tribe enjoyed the peaceful sanctuary of these amazing springs and this beautiful place almost exclusively. But they did allow other peaceful native Indian tribes to come enjoy the benefits of the springs from time to time. The Catawba tribe used the springs primarily as a religious and ceremonial meeting place, and they held the springs in very high regard. However, by the 1700s, the European settlers had also heard of the springs. And instead of coming and enjoying an occasional pilgrimage to this quiet and beautiful, majestic place, one group of settlers decided to build permanent cottages. They built 5 cottages, to be exact, that surrounded a small courtyard near the sulfur springs. Now, you might be wondering what happened to the local Indian tribe. Well, to their credit, or maybe their demise, they didn't protest the settlers coming in, and they lived with them peaceably throughout the 17 and even into the 1800s. One of those first cottages built is still standing on the property today and serves as a special events spa. In 1735, the land was officially purchased from the government by John Littler and Thomas Reese. And throughout the 1700s, the land changed hands several times, but the thing that remained a constant was that more and more people were finding out about the springs and coming to enjoy its beauty and benefits. In 1800, the Jordan family bought the land and established the Jordan White Sulphur Springs Resort. The first hotel was completed in 1832 by Branch M. Jordan and was made of hand-cut limestone and is still standing and in use on the property today. In the same year of 1832, David Holmes, a 5-term U.S. Congressman of Virginia and the governor of the Mississippi Territory, came to the resort in his declining health, seeking relief in the sulfur springs. He stayed at the springs for most of the year of 1832 before passing away in his room at the resort. In 1855, Edwin Clarendon Jordan, a nephew of Branch Jordan, built and opened the second and larger wooden hotel, which was at the front of the property. Now with 2 hotels, bathhouses, spas, and cottages, the popularity of Jordan Springs grew. It also helped that it was so close to the nation's capital in Washington, D.C., only about 50 miles away. This made Jordan Springs a favorite destination for government officials and the elites of the day. That is, until 1861, with the outbreak of the Civil War. The operations at the hotels stopped. When the war reached as close as Stevenson, the whole resort was forced to transform into a temporary hospital for both Union and Confederate soldiers. Both hotels and every building on the property were filled with surgery wings, dying soldiers, recovering soldiers, and of course, much needed therapeutic relief in the Springs. It was the first battle near Sharpsburg that literally brought more wounded than staff and doctors could handle. You might know this battle by the name of Antietam. It remains the bloodiest day in American history, with almost 23,000 dead and missing. The grounds of Jordan Springs were also used as a temporary graveyard until the end of the war. In 1866, the bodies of the deceased were exhumed and taken to Stonewall Cemetery in Winchester, Virginia, where they were finally laid to rest. Could this mass moving of bodies be one of the reasons that this property is so haunted today? Later in the war, the resort and the Springs also received wounded from the Battle of Gettysburg. Two of the biggest and worst battles of the war fell right on Jordan Springs' doorstep. The resort also obviously received many wounded from the Battle of Winchester because it was so very close as well. It is reported that during this battle, the Confederate General Edwards Allegheny Johnson stopped by the hotel to ask directions to Stevenson's depot. He had been ordered to block the Union's retreat from Winchester. It is also reported that members of the Jordan family, who were strong Confederate sympathizers, guided the general and his troops to the bridge at the depot. Johnson's men reached the bridge in the pre-dawn just in time to hold it against the retreating Feds. Over 4,000 Union soldiers surrendered to General Johnson and his men. It was the largest number of surrendered troops taken in the war at that point. Afterward, General Johnson is reported to have come back to Jordan Springs with his officers and ate breakfast with the Jordan family. After the war, the resort was reopened and enjoyed its peak of prosperity. The elite and government officials came back in droves. A few of the famous guests were U.S. President Theodore Roosevelt, General Robert E. Lee, and General Thomas Stonewall Jackson, just to name a few. In 1893, the third and final hotel was built by Edward Jordan Jr., the grandson of Branch Jordan. This hotel was again made with hand-cut limestone and brick, just like the first hotel, and is still in use today. The resort operated until 1916, when the Jordan family had to close the doors because of financial reasons. Many of you will recognize this was the time just before what is known as the Great Depression. So the Jordan family were not the only ones having financial troubles. In 1920, the second hotel, the only one made from wood, caught fire and sadly was not able to be saved. From 1920 to 1942, the property remained mainly empty and vacant. It was reopened as a hotel for a short time until it was sold in 1953 to a Catholic monastery and seminary, who operated the property until 1972, when they leased the hotels to a drug and alcohol rehab center for young people. It operated until 1999. Finally, in 2001, Greg and Tony Aiken purchased Jordan Springs and have worked hard to restore it back to its original glory. With such a long and diverse history,
It is no wonder that Jordan Springs is known as one of the most haunted places in all of Virginia. Local paranormal teams have gathered compelling evidence on their multiple investigations, recording disembodied voices, with videos of shadow figures, pictures of full-bodied apparitions, and many other disturbing things. Jordan Springs is not just locally famous for the paranormal. It became nationally and even worldly famous when major TV shows heard of the activity and came to see for themselves. The Sci-Fi Channel's Ghost Hunters and the Haunted Collector series both did episodes here, as did the Discovery Channel show When Ghosts Attack. So what specifically attracted all these researchers and investigators to come to this otherwise peaceful-looking place in North Virginia? One of the main claims is disembodied voices being heard in both hotels and even outside on the sprawling 237 acres of secluded woods. That is, a voice being heard when no one else is present. In fact, if you are on the second floor in the main hotel, you might be lucky enough to actually listen to an entire conversation between two people who aren't there. This is a phenomenon that has happened multiple times and has been reported and recorded multiple times. Simply amazing. After so many investigations at Jordan Springs, it has been called the most EVP active location in the United States. Now, for those who don't know, EVP stands for Electronic Voice Phenomenon, and is when a voice is recorded that many times can barely be heard or even not heard with human ears, but when the volume is raised on the tape or digital recorder and is played back, then the voice is plainly heard. Staff, visitors, and investigators at Jordan Springs have reported literally dozens of spirits on the property and in the buildings, ranging from Native Americans, Civil War soldiers, Civil War nurses, several various adult males and females, even children's spirits, and the ghost of a Catholic monk. Just imagine the pain, misery, and mental anguish that took place right here on this property. From the Native Americans to the Civil War, the hospital, then to the drug rehab. So much emotion, so much energy, and the number of deaths that happened are almost innumerable. The reports of paranormal activity also started very early on the property. We do know that during the time that Jordan Springs was a drug rehab center, the staff was so fearful of stirring up the ghost activity that the patients were forbidden to talk about ghosts. In fact, it was a standing rule that if any patient brought up anything about ghosts or the paranormal, they would immediately be released as a patient.
Paranormal landmark in Virginia has turned out to be a location with far more than your average haunted house attractions. WHEG spoke with an expert that was flown in from overseas to check it out.
The tranquility of the historic Jordan Springs estate is undeniable, but it's what lies beyond this serenity that has taken the paranormal world by storm.
The first thing you do is say, "Did you see that? You saw that, right?" Because you think you're going crazy.
Before it was an event and conference destination, the land was sacred ground by the Catawba Indians and later a Civil War hospital. But according to Mike Brooker, this place is much more.
Jordan Springs is an epicenter, a total nucleus of all that is incredibly paranormal.
Brooker is a principal psychic for the BBC and has spent the last 30 years as a paranormal investigator in the UK. This trip to Jordan Springs was his first to the US and was only supposed to be 10 days long. But the experience was so powerful, he has decided to remain on site indefinitely.
You come for a 10-day visit, and because of that visit, it results in you changing countries.
And one that many of past and now present have decided to remain. In Frederick County, Virginia, Alex Hoff, WHAG News.
Staff says at Christmas time, one of the ghost's favorite pastimes is moving ornaments and small decorations around. Some have been totally shocked to see this happen right in front of their eyes. In the attic of the old inn seems to be a little girl who you can talk with and will even play hide and seek with you. But don't stay in the attic too long, because there is also the spirit of what seems to be an angry male, or maybe an angry something else, who has touched several staff and investigators, and on a couple of occasions literally ran off investigators by scratching, pushing, and other aggressive behavior. Many have also experienced growling noises in the attic. In fact, taps also recorded this in the attic of the old inn.
About 8 years ago, I get a call from the owners of this place, and they said, there's some weird stuff going on here. Would you be willing to come down and check it out? Then you turn a corner, and there's something there that you don't expect to be there.
A quick note, during that shoot, my camera kept going in and out of different recording modes without me selecting the changes. I'm not making that up. It freaked me out. Now, did I see anything? No. Did I run out quickly after an hour and a half inside the house? Most definitely. Reese, I don't want to do that again. It was a nice experience, but I spent a lot of time talking to Jesus.
It doesn't take long looking into Jordan Springs to know something beyond the normal is going on all around this property. Those who know will tell you, walk around at Jordan Springs and it won't be long before you will hear a voice from beyond the veil. And stay a little longer and you're liable to see one of the Civil War soldiers or a Native American cross your path. This gorgeous piece of Virginian paradise is truly one scary place.